Lovely close control there by Weller. Still with Weller. Oh, and what a fantastic goal! What a tremendous goal by Keith Weller.
Hutchinson and Osgood in the middle. It's Osgood going to try and get underneath this one and does so! And it's there by Weller!
He didn't walk onto pitches like he owned them. He didn't gesture for the spotlight. He didn't shout for respect. But when Keith Weller touched the ball, the game went quiet. He wore white tights cutting through the mud in an era that was still grey. He moved like rhythm had found a body, like grace had finally entered a game still ruled by grit. Others chased space. He created it. Others fought for control. He played like he already had it. There were no choreographed celebrations, no brands, no agents in his ear, just football and the way it looked when balance met instinct. You won't find his face on stadium walls. No national tribute, but ask anyone who saw him and they'll tell you. He was poetry when football still demanded blood, and for a moment he made mud-covered fields feel like theater. If you believe those names should never be erased, subscribe, because what they buried in silence will speak back into history. Keith Weller was born in Islington, North London in the early summer of 1946, just months after England lifted its wartime blackout. He came into a country rebuilding itself, and a game still shaped by mud, sweat, and silence. As a boy, the ball never left his feet. Not because he was chasing fame, but because movement made sense to him in a way the world didn't yet explain. At 18, he signed for Tottenham Hotspur, a dream on paper, until the reality set in. The team was crowded with legends: Jimmy Greaves, Alan Gilzean, Dave Mackay, giant names already carved in the marble of the game. Weller wasn't ignored. He was simply out of view. Between 1964 and 1967, he played just 21 league matches, scoring once. Not enough to grow, not enough to breathe. But he wasn't bitter, because deep down, he knew the bench wouldn't hold him forever. Some players wait for opportunity, others go looking for it. So Weller left Tottenham, not in anger, but in search of a pitch where rhythm mattered more than reputation. And when he found it, he didn't ask for space. He took it. In 1967, Keith Weller walked into the Den and the noise finally met its match. Millwall didn't ask for elegance, it demanded steel. And yet, Weller brought something they'd never had: beauty with bite. Over 3 seasons, he played 121 league games, scored 40 goals, and made every touch feel like rebellion. He wasn't just quick, he was precise. He didn't run blindly down the wing. He moved like a man who saw spaces before they opened. The crowd roared louder for others, but they held their breath for him. They'd never seen a player like this wearing their shirt with such control, such ease, such intention. He didn't need flicks or step-overs. He needed 1 yard and the belief to go where others wouldn't. He made Millwall believe in more than survival. He made them feel dangerous in a different way. And by the time the rest of the league took notice, Weller was already outgrowing the noise. Not because he was above it, but because his game whispered something deeper. By 1970, the league had seen enough. Keith Weller was no longer a secret. He signed for Chelsea for around $100,000, a price tag heavy with expectation. And he delivered. In his 1 full season, he scored 14 goals in 38 league appearances, became the club's top scorer, and helped them lift the 1971 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. He played with names the papers loved: Peter Osgood, Alan Hudson, Ron Harris, John Hollins. They played fast, they played bold. And so did he. But even as the trophies came, something never quite settled. He wasn't chasing medals, he was chasing movement. The game he carried inside him didn't care for parades. At Chelsea, he won, but he didn't belong. And Weller wasn't the type to wait for belonging to arrive. He moved again, not for status, not for headlines, but for rhythm. Because deep down, he knew his best football still hadn't been seen. In 1971, Keith Weller arrived at Leicester City. And for once, he didn't have to fight for space. He just filled it. For the next 7 seasons, he wore the number 7 shirt and played with a kind of balance that made chaos look organized. 262 league games, 37 goals. But numbers never measured what Weller gave. It was the timing, the touch, the way he turned stillness into danger with a single glance inside. He became a symbol, long hair blowing in the wind, white tights cutting through the mud, arms loose, eyes calm. He looked like he belonged in another era, but made this one feel like magic. He played alongside artists and outlaws, Frank Worthington, Alan Birchinall. He played under Jimmy Bloomfield, a manager who let the music breathe. In 1974, he produced a famous solo run, his unforgettable FA Cup goal at Luton, a moment of pure invention. That run is still spoken of in whispers. Not because it was loud, but because it was perfect. Leicester didn't make him a star. They let him be himself. And that's what made him eternal. Because some players shine for a season. Keith Weller became part of the pitch. In May 1974, Keith Weller finally wore the England shirt. 4 matches, all within 11 days. All under caretaker manager Joe Mercer. He played with control, with purpose, and on 15th of May, he scored at Wembley against Northern Ireland. A clean finish, no celebration, just another piece of poetry in a game that rarely paused to notice. And then, silence. When Don Revie took over as permanent manager, Weller was never called up again. No injury, no decline, just a mission. He never complained. He never asked why, but those who watched him knew. England had turned away from grace in favor of grind. And Weller, he didn't fit the system. He didn't press. He didn't shout. He just played better than most and let the ball speak for him. 4 caps, 1 goal, and a national team that never understood what it had let go. Weller didn't wear the badge for long, but he wore it with silence, with dignity, and with style. England didn't know how to keep. By 1978, the English game had changed. So had Keith Weller. He could have stopped. 7 seasons at Leicester. Hundreds of games. Memories already carved. But Weller wasn't chasing comfort. He was still chasing rhythm. He moved to the United States, signed for the New England T-Men, and brought his grace to a league still learning its lines. He played 72 league matches, scored 18 goals, and gave the NASL something it couldn't teach: elegance under pressure. From there, he joined the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, shared dressing rooms with global names, and adapted his craft to indoor fields, tight spaces, quicker feet. Even then, he made the game breathe. He wasn't coasting, he was still evolving. In 1984, as player-coach of the South Florida Sun, he won the USL Championship, quietly, without headlines, without ceremony. He later coached the Tacoma Stars, the Sacramento Knights, and mentored younger players who never knew what England had once wasted. While others went to America for a payday, Weller went for the game. Because for him, playing had never been about the crowd. It was about the ball, the grass beneath it, and the music in between. In 1983, he also spent a short loan at the Tulsa Roughnecks, where he made 6 appearances and scored 6 goals. In April 1986, he was hired as coach of the Houston Dynamos, a US independent side. When the boots were finally hung, Keith Weller didn't chase legacy. He didn't tour stadiums or write columns. He disappeared the way he had always moved through the game, without noise. He settled in Seattle, a city far from the terraces of Millwall, the chants of Stamford Bridge, or the memories of Filbert Street. He opened a coffee shop, drove a broadcast van for a local news station, lived quietly, spoke rarely, and watched the game carry on without him. But in 2004, the silence turned. He was diagnosed with leiomyosarcoma, a rare cancer that moved fast and without mercy. And on 13th of November 2004, some sources reported 12th of November, Keith Weller died, aged 58. There was no national tribute, no statue, no retrospective montage. But in Leicester, the grief was real. The fans remembered. Some helped raise funds for his care. Some left scarves. Some just stood still. Because when someone gives the game grace, you don't forget them, even if the world does. He didn't ask for applause. He didn't ask for anything. But what he gave was everything. He also worked in assistant and indoor roles across the US, including stints with the Dallas Sidekicks and San Diego Sockers, carrying his craft into the next generation. No statue was built. No Hall of Fame engraved his name. No testimonial sent him off beneath a flood of lights. But some players don't need monuments. They become one. Ask the fans at Leicester, and they'll speak his name like a hymn, not loud but certain. They remember the way he moved, the way he drifted past defenders without violence, the way he turned matches into moments. He never shouted, he never sold himself. He just played with grace, with rhythm, with a kind of control that couldn't be taught. And that's why time forgot him, because Keith Weller didn't chase memory. He created it. He was white tights in a world of black. He was elegance in a game built on grit. He was the kind of footballer we only see when we stop looking for noise. And if the game never found the words to thank him, we will. Here, now. Because some names deserve to be remembered not for how long they played, but for how beautifully they did it. Subscribe if you believe poetry should never be erased from football. Because this isn't just memory, this is restoration. Keith Weller, let it be known.